皆様お待たせいたしました。本日最後のセッションとなります。ディレクターオブプロダクトマネジメントオープンスタック VMware ダン・ウェンドランド様よりオープンスタックパワードバイ VMware vSphere プラス NSX と題しましてご講演をいただきます。なお当セッションでは同時通訳がございます。チャンネル1番で日本語をお聞きいただけます。同通レシーバーがお手元にない方はスタッフがお配りいたしますので挙手をお願いいたします。それではダン・ウェンドランド様よろしくお願いいたします。
This is picking it up. Okay, great. I want to thank everyone for staying till this final session. A little bit about me. I'm a director of product management at VMware. I work on VMware strategy for how to integrate all of our technologies into OpenStack. Before this, I was at Nicira, where we started a lot of the work around SDN and OpenFlow and network virtualization. And as part of that work, I was the PTL, or project technical lead, for the OpenStack networking project for 2 years before taking this role at VMware. So, you know, if you only remember one thing from this presentation, I want you to take away the fact that, you know, often in the media you'll hear about it's OpenStack versus VMware. Or there's a fork in the road and you need to choose one direction or the other. And what I'm here to talk about today is that's not really the case at all. And in fact, what I want to talk about is how OpenStack and VMware can be better together. And what we really hear from our customers is that what they like about OpenStack is that it is this, you know, very developer-friendly, industry-standard API that will give them portability for how they build their application code against the cloud. And what a lot of companies really like about VMware is that it's an enterprise-grade, very feature-rich, very reliable, virtualized infrastructure that their IT staff already knows how to run and operate. And so my job at VMware is to be able to bring these two worlds together in a way that solves a lot of our customer problems. So I think in a lot of ways, one of the reasons people are confused about OpenStack and VMware is that they misunderstand what's really interesting about OpenStack. A lot of people think, oh, OpenStack is free. That's what's interesting about OpenStack. I think if you know people who've stood up OpenStack, you know, they'll tell you it's not free in the sense of it just works. It takes a lot of time and effort. So what's really interesting about OpenStack from the customers that I talk to is the notion of freedom of choice. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's two different things. First off, I can choose the technologies, the virtualization layer technologies that I want to plug in for compute, network, and storage. And I can also choose my deployment model. Do I want to do everything myself, or do I want to buy a solution from a vendor? Do I want to find some place in between? And you have that choice while still having these kind of industry standard APIs. So this is really what VMware is looking to enable for our customers. And I'll spend a lot of this talk talking about how we're doing that and how we're integrating our technologies. So to deep dive on both of those 2 points, first, choice of technology. So you can think of OpenStack as an API layer that should be uniform regardless of what technologies you're running underneath. So if you've made a decision to deploy OpenStack, really you've only made the first of many decisions you then have to make. You need to decide, what should I choose for my compute layer? What should I choose for my networking layer? What should I choose for my storage layer? How am I going to manage all of this in a way that I can troubleshoot, guarantee SLAs, do chargeback, do capacity planning, et cetera? So this is the typical discussion we have with a customer around how they want to build their cloud. The second is choice of consumption model. One of the biggest points of confusion with OpenStack when people first hear about it is that they often think that OpenStack is a product. It's something I download, I install, and I'm off and running. And the truth is that OpenStack is just an open source code base managed by the foundation. And how you may end up consuming that will vary greatly depending on your needs as a customer. So I think of it in terms of a spectrum. On one far end of the spectrum, there are customers that are all do-it-yourself. They're going to get the open source code. They're going to do their own testing. They're going to have their own developers. And while they may not pay software licenses, they expend a lot of energy making OpenStack successful. One level over from that are distros. I may go to someone like Canonical or Red Hat or Mirantis and get a package framework, and optionally I can buy support from them. One step further over is what I call Core Plus. These are companies, Piston's a good example, that take the OpenStack code base that is open source, add proprietary technology to it, and sell that as a product. And that's not a free product, that's a product you pay software licenses for, just like any other product. And then the final end of that spectrum is what I call API compatibility. This is where someone has an existing product that provides cloud functionality, and they layer OpenStack on top of it to give customers the option of consuming that product in an OpenStack, kind of OpenStack-friendly way. So all of these are ways that you as a customer could take advantage of OpenStack. And actually, VMware is working to enable you to take advantage of VMware technologies in OpenStack all the way across this spectrum. We have some customers who are in the do-it-yourself category, and we have some customers who want a polished and delivered solution. And for VMware, OpenStack is a lot about customer choice. And that's what we're looking to enable here. And we're letting our customers make a trade-off between having infinite flexibility and having a polished product. So just to reiterate, what's interesting about OpenStack and VMware in our opinion? You can get all of the benefits of OpenStack, the choice of underlying technologies, the choice of deployment model, with everything that VMware is known for: innovation, reliability, and a fantastic ecosystem of partners, and best-in-class software infrastructure. For example, you might build out an OpenStack cloud that the only piece of VMware in it is NSX for the networking layer, maybe KVM for compute, Ceph for storage. You may have a mix of vSphere and NSX and some other technologies as well. Or you may have a full VMware stack from us, our vCloud Suite, for example, and run OpenStack on top of it. So there are many options of how you can consume VMware technology within OpenStack. And we're integrating with OpenStack, contributing to the community in order to make that possible. So I'll have another slide that talks a bit about our community contributions next. But we're not only contributing drivers upstream. To me, that's the minimum. But we're also doing a lot of work, testing work, community reviews, et cetera, that help make OpenStack as a whole better. Because if our customers are using OpenStack, we need to make sure our customers are successful. And then, like every vendor in the OpenStack ecosystem, we're going to have an argument about, or discussion about, why the best way to run OpenStack is to run it with VMware components. How does our technology help you run the best possible OpenStack cloud? Whether it's our compute technology, our network technology, additional management technologies that fill gaps that aren't covered by OpenStack, et cetera. And then we work with partners in the OpenStack ecosystem, those that actually deliver OpenStack as a product or OpenStack as a distro, to make sure that it's very easy for you to leverage OpenStack with VMware. So most of the rest of the talk, I'll be kind of going into more detail about what I mean or what I've said in this slide. Here's a slide showing the different touch points between OpenStack and VMware technologies. I'll go into more detail on each of these, but this slide's an overview. In gray, you see the OpenStack projects, things like Nova, Neutron, Cinder, Glance, Horizon. And in blue, you see VMware technologies and the OpenStack projects they fit with. So Nova integrates with VMware Virtual Center and ESX. Neutron integrates with NSX. Both Cinder and Glance were working to integrate with vSphere data stores, take advantage of our great ecosystem of storage partners. And then we have operational tools that most enterprise IT admins are already familiar with in terms of how to manage virtual infrastructure. And we let you use those same tools to manage your OpenStack cloud. And that's a very powerful capability, because that means everyone, or almost everyone, already has people in their organization who know how to run OpenStack infrastructure, because they know how to run VMware infrastructure. The last touch point in the upper corner is something called VCAC. It's vCloud Automation Center. This is a tool that actually sits on top of OpenStack and other clouds like Amazon Web Services, and can provide governance that spans multiple clouds. So before going into more detail on each of those, I do want to call out the great work that our developers have been doing upstream in the OpenStack community. So many people are surprised to hear that VMware is contributing to OpenStack. Then when I tell them not only are we contributing, but we're actually the 7th largest contributor in the Havana release, they're quite surprised. So we're the 7th largest contributor to core projects in Havana. That involves 17 different developers from VMware, over 300 code commits, and something I'm very proud of is over 3,500 different code reviews. And the reason I'm proud of the code reviews in particular is because that shows VMware is not just working to get its code in, but it's working to help the community and make OpenStack better in general. Here you can see the set of OpenStack projects, and the size there corresponds to the number of commits we had in that project in the Havana release. A bit of history. In the Grizzly release, we've had the Neutron work for a long time because of the Nicira effort. Nicira helped actually create the Neutron project back when it was called Quantum. And in the Grizzly release was the first release where VMware as a whole really started contributing to OpenStack and integrating vSphere into OpenStack. That was kind of a beta version of that integration. And in Havana, not only did we continue to improve our networking and Nova integrations, but we also added a Cinder integration for block storage. And we'll go into more detail on that. And the upcoming Icehouse release, we're expanding that even further and integrating Glance. So the important thing to take away here is that VMware's involvement in OpenStack continues to grow, not only in terms of the number of developers and the number of commits, but also the scope of our involvement in the OpenStack project. Here are only a fraction of the set of customers we're working with in OpenStack, but these are a set that have agreed to be public references for us. You can see that we're working with many of the best names in the OpenStack community, many of the people with the largest scale OpenStack deployments out there. And so whenever someone questions whether VMware is really trying to help their customers be successful with OpenStack, these are examples that I always like to point to. We've been helping these people fight through OpenStack bugs for the past 3 years, and we're going to continue to help them fight through them, because at the end of the day, what's important is making sure your customers are successful with their technology. And if our customers are successful with cloud, VMware is going to be successful because we're delivering the technologies that help them build those clouds. So at this point, I'm going to go back and dive a little deeper into each one of these individual areas. There'll be more detail on the slide than I'll say up here, just because we'll post these slides later. And if you want to know if a particular feature is enabled or something, you can look at the slides. I won't necessarily cover it here. So first off, the Nova integration. I think of the benefits of the Nova vSphere integration in two main buckets. First off is technical capabilities of the vSphere platform. vSphere is known for being an extremely reliable, secure, high-performance hypervisor. It also is known for having great features like vMotion and HA, high availability. Things like DRS for balancing your workload, spreading the load, really good resource protections to prevent one VM's usage from conflicting with another. Those are all core benefits of the vSphere platform. And we've been very careful in architecting the Nova integration with vSphere to make sure we preserve those capabilities. For example, you can still run DRS and have DRS move a workload from one physical host to another, and it won't confuse OpenStack. Similarly, you can use maintenance mode and fail over VMs, and it won't confuse OpenStack. So these are probably one of the most common questions we get from our customers about how the Nova vSphere integration works. Does it preserve HA? Does it preserve vMotion? The answer is clearly yes. The second benefit, and I've already touched on this, is operational. VMware is a very kind of polished platform in terms of the sets of tools for doing monitoring, management, install, upgrade, those types of things. And there's a vast number of people who are very familiar and comfortable with this platform. So again, being able to help those people just add OpenStack as a layer on top of that means it's much easier for them to adopt OpenStack, particularly as you look at OpenStack moving into the enterprise. So I think VMware, I'm optimistic that VMware will be a really big benefit to helping OpenStack move into the enterprise. Because I think vSphere is a key technology in the enterprise. And making those two work together will be a win for the OpenStack community and will be a win for VMware. So next up, the networking. So this is close to my heart because this is what I used to work on at Nicira. So one of the problems with when people first started doing cloud was they realized they could create a VM very quickly, but then to do any of the networking that they needed associated with that workload or that new application, it took forever to get because it was still a manual process. So the goal of what Neutron does, why we created the Neutron project and what NSX is capable of doing is virtualizing the network, pulling that intelligence out of the physical hardware the same way compute virtualization pulled that intelligence out of the physical compute gear. So you no longer need to worry about having a particular switch from a particular vendor. You don't need to physically plumb VLANs through your infrastructure or configure a physical firewall. You can do all of that programmatically via an API. And I could talk forever about this, but I won't. But there's many technical reasons why NSX is a fantastic platform for this, in terms of performance, in terms of high availability, in terms of its ability to scale, in terms of its ability to intelligently distribute the network processing in order to avoid bottlenecks in your environment. So we spent an incredible amount of work making this an extremely powerful network virtualization platform. Another great aspect of NSX is its compatibility and its ecosystem. NSX works equally well across KVM, Xen Server, and ESX. And it can even create logical networks that include VMs. It can create a single network that includes VMs on different hypervisors. run on KVM. Maybe your database is on VMware, your web front end is on KVM. Additionally, at a recent conference, we announced a whole list of hardware partners who we're working very closely with so that we can control not only virtual switches, but hardware switches as well. And so this means that you can even create virtual networks that include bare metal workloads and virtual workloads. This is a great, VMware has always prided itself in terms of having a very strong ecosystem, having very strong partners. We've already demonstrated that clearly on the storage side. This is an example of how we're pulling in that partner ecosystem on the networking side as well. And finally, one thing that's often overlooked but really matters when you're running this in production, like many of our customers are, is operations on the network side. How do you troubleshoot when something is going wrong? How do you understand whether the problem is at your virtual networking layer or at your physical networking layer? NSX has many advanced tools to help you do exactly that and quickly pinpoint where the problem is. Finally, I'm going to touch on the Cinder block storage and the Glance image service. What's really unique about the integration we did for Cinder is that it's extremely simple because it just talks to vSphere. It doesn't talk directly to the array, the storage array. So what that means is automatically any storage that works with vSphere, which is a vast ecosystem of storage partners, automatically you can use a storage capacity for Cinder volumes, for VM disks, and for Glance images in OpenStack. And so you're able to leverage all of the work that's already been done to test and validate each of these individual storage arrays and use them in an OpenStack environment. And you're also able to leverage a lot of the work VMware's done working with these storage partners to accelerate certain operations like snapshot and make sure that they're done efficiently on the array. One other very interesting aspect of our Cinder integration is that it enables the use of a VMware technology that actually just officially launched this week called Virtual SAN, or vSAN. What vSAN is it takes solid-state drives, SSDs, and physical disks in the individual hypervisors and dynamically pools those into a single aggregated data store that acts like a virtual SAN without you having the cost associated with a physical SAN. And so you can hit very aggressive price points using this technology, and it also gives you a very incredible amount of control over how much SSD caching you want to do on a per VM basis. So in OpenStack, for example, you can create a volume type that is your all-flash volume type that you might use with a database server. And that can be served by vSAN. And you can create your really cheap, don't care about IOPS performance volume type, and that can be served by vSAN as well, because vSAN's dynamically controlling the amount of SSD that's used to cache on a per VM basis. And unlike other technologies like Ceph or Gluster, which require a dedicated cluster that's not on the hypervisor, vSAN actually is making sure that it's the flash in the same hypervisor that the VM's currently running in that it will leverage for that caching. So you can get extremely high IOPS performance for when it matters for your workloads. The last thing to talk about are things that don't directly plug in as drivers to OpenStack projects, but are VMware technologies that our customers sometimes choose to leverage when deploying OpenStack with VMware. I've divided into two types of management. At the bottom, it's operations and management. And at the top, that's vCloud Automation Center. That's application level management. So in a bit more detail, vCloud Automation Center is a layer that lives above any individual cloud. It can talk to OpenStack. It can talk to VMware's vCloud Hybrid Service Cloud. It can talk to Amazon. It could talk to an OpenStack public cloud. And it helps It helps you manage a catalog of applications that you have. It helps you define new applications and deploy those to whatever cloud backend is right for that application. And it may even be that when something's in test, you deploy it someplace, and when it's in production, you deploy it in another, for example. It also adds a lot of advanced capabilities that enterprises need when they want to really be able to control workloads. Things like governance, workflow, approval, cost analysis, leases, chargeback, et cetera. Infrastructure management is the flip side. It's how do I make sure that my infrastructure is operating properly? How do I troubleshoot problems when they pop up? VMware, obviously there are tools like vCenter and NSX that have their own inbuilt troubleshooting capabilities. And then additionally, there's a tool called vCenter Operations Management, or VCOps. And that has this very advanced monitoring, and it actually does a lot of trending and anomaly detection to help you understand when things in your environment go from operating normally to operating abnormally, and therefore maybe an indication of something wrong. So it's really about helping you kind of find that needle in a haystack. Things were working, things stopped working, what changed, where do I likely need to be looking to fix that problem? So that wraps up the kind of overview of the different VMware technologies and how they fit into OpenStack. Now on to something I consider a bit more fun, which is how can you actually get your hands on this stuff? How can you play around with that? Because ultimately, that's really the way you learn. So August of last year, we released a tool called Vova. Just to be very clear, this is not a product. This is not something, it's free, but there's no commercial support for it. We have a community forum where you can ask questions. But it's a basic tool you can download. It's a virtual appliance. You can download. You can start the virtual appliance. It'll ask you a couple questions, like give me your vCenter IP address, give me your vCenter username, vCenter password, tell me about a cluster. And you press go. And that virtual appliance basically is a fully contained OpenStack install. And we take the answers to the questions you provided, insert them into the OpenStack config, and you actually have a fully functional OpenStack on vSphere environment. And you can do it in less than 20 minutes. And so here you can see an example of my vCenter inventory when I'm running Vova. You can see Vova is the VM that I have highlighted, and those two VMs with UUIDs in the names are two VMs that I created using OpenStack. Because remember, when you're using OpenStack with vSphere, your cloud tenants, your cloud users, still use the exact same tools they would if there's any other technology on the back end. They can use Horizon. You can use the CLI. You can program directly against the APIs. It's really only the cloud operator, the cloud admin, that would use a tool like vCenter to troubleshoot or understand what's going on in the infrastructure. So you can see the link here. This link will take you to VMware's OpenStack community. This includes a forum where you can ask questions. If you have issues with Vova, or if you just have general questions about what's supported, you can ask them there. You can also download the Vova manual, which walks you through the instructions to download Vova, set it up, spin up a VM, create a volume, all the basic stuff. So that sounds pretty easy, right? But what if that's even too complicated? We've made it even easier for you, so you have no excuses. So VMware has this really cool capability called hands-on labs. So if you've ever been to a VMworld, you may have physically gone and sat at a terminal and done a hands-on lab. OpenStack's an option if you go to a VMware event. But they also have those labs available every day, every hour online. So if you go to this link, you'll get a virtual desktop. And that virtual desktop is a Windows environment with a surrounding lab environment running Vova and a small VMware configuration. And so you don't even need your own lab to play with OpenStack and vSphere. And I think one of the things that I think is very cool about this is I actually think this is quite possibly the easiest way to play with OpenStack at all, regardless of VMware or otherwise. I'm not aware of any other way to get that it's this easy. It's literally 30 seconds to get your own OpenStack environment that you can poke around in. You can look at the config files. You can do whatever you want. You can go off script. It's a fully real environment. Right now, if you go to this website right now, the lab up there covers Nova and Cinder. In late February, we're updating it to include Neutron with NSX as well. The Nova Cinder part takes about 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, probably another 30 or 40 minutes to cover the networking part if you're interested in that. So before we wrap up, I wanted to highlight a couple of the OpenStack partners we're working closely with. As I mentioned earlier, VMware doesn't sell OpenStack. We work with partners in the OpenStack ecosystem to make sure that their OpenStack products or their OpenStack distros work well with VMware technologies. So for example, we've been working for a long time with Canonical so that for example, they have reference architectures around deploying vSphere and NSX. Their automation framework called Juju works with vSphere and NSX. Our support teams know how to talk to each other, et cetera. We've been working with Red Hat to date mainly around NSX and the networking side, making sure that our Open vSwitch plays nicely with their RHEL platform. SUSE Cloud 2.0 included basic support for vSphere, and NSX is in the mix. We're eagerly awaiting an upcoming SUSE release, which will include further VMware support and kind of really bring that support up to a full integration with the VMware portfolio. And finally, in November, we announced a partnership with Mirantis. Mirantis has a tool called Fuel that helps automate the deployment of OpenStack. And Mirantis is currently working to add support for vSphere and NSX to Fuel so that it's a checkbox that you can say, oh, I want to deploy OpenStack. Oh, I'm using VMware, so let me enter in the information you need. Oh, I'm using NSX. Let me click this box. Very easy to install and deploy OpenStack with VMware technologies. And of course, we have a whole another set of partners that we're continuing to work with but haven't been publicly announced. I'm happy to take any additional questions afterward if you're curious about a particular partner or the status. So just to wrap up, I think the key takeaway to me and what I've learned from talking to so many customers about OpenStack and VMware is that I think it's a really exciting combination of these industry standard, very developer-friendly, DevOps-style APIs on top of infrastructure that the enterprise IT staff already trusts and knows how to run. I think in so many cases, we have a conversation with our IT contact in a customer that says, oh, my developers really want OpenStack. How do I give them OpenStack? But I want to run it on infrastructure I understand. And so that's really what we're enabling. And as I mentioned, I think as OpenStack moves more mainstream and moves more into the enterprise, I think this is going to be one of the most common ways that you see OpenStack deployed as we kind of move from the early adopter phase to a more mainstream enterprise phase. So I think what I tried to cover in this talk was talk about how VMware and VMware's ecosystem of partners in storage, networking, and management really have an incredible amount of great technology, and VMware is contributing to the open source community to integrate that and to improve the quality of OpenStack as a whole so that our customers can really realize this vision of combining the OpenStack cloud layer and VMware's virtualization layer to kind of get the best of both worlds and deliver OpenStack to their developers on infrastructure they know and trust. So with that, I'm done. I always have to call out. I guess I should be wearing my button. Usually I am. Maybe my wife would kill me if I wore a button on the suit though. So probably a good thing I didn't. But we're hiring. If you're at all interested in contributing to OpenStack, even people who just work upstream and don't even necessarily do anything specific for VMware, but are just improving the OpenStack community, we're looking to hire all types of people, even if you don't have a background specifically with VMware right now. That link is the link to the OpenStack VMware community. We have a blog up there. We have a forum to ask questions. Like I said, if you go there, worst case, you can't find anything, you can't find the white papers we published or whatever, go there, ask a question, you'll get an answer. And if you use Twitter and you're interested in kind of hearing about things related to OpenStack and VMware, that's my Twitter handle. I don't tweet religiously, but anytime I find something interesting, I try to put it up there. So again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for staying to this final session. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at this point.
ウェンドランド様、ありがとうございました。皆様、アンケートのご協力をお願いいたします。会場出口にてノベルティと交換させていただきます。質疑応答を少し受けさせていただくということでございます。ご質問あります方は挙手をお願いいたします。ただいまマイクをお持ちいたしますのでお待ちくださいませ。
Hi, thank you for good presentation. I'd like to know your thought on the integration of Nova and vCenter. The current implementation is, in a sense, very basic. There's just one intermediate driver between Nova and vCenter. vCenter is still vCenter. So there remains some functional redundancy between Nova and vCenter and probably vCloud Director. So is there any possibility that vCenter itself would be changed to be more closely aligned with OpenStack architecture?
We're certainly thinking about that direction. I think in some cases, it may make sense to try to enable deployments that don't have vCenter in it, just from a simplicity perspective. I think right now, the type of customers we're focused on really care about the features that you get from vCenter, things like vMotion, DRS, et cetera. So that's our first area of focus. But definitely, we're looking into what would make sense in terms of a model where, yeah, you kind of remove vCenter from that layer. Of course, you lose the capabilities that vCenter provides, but perhaps in your deployment, those capabilities aren't critical. So yeah, I'd be happy to provide more details with you directly.
That's great. Thank you.
ありがとうございました。お時間の都合上、以上をもちまして質疑応答を終了させていただきます。ウェンドランド様、どうもありがとうございました。以上をもちましてすべてのプログラムを終了とさせていただきます。なお本日の講演資料は後日ウェブサイトへ掲載させていただく予定でございます。